Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our comedy event. We hope that you're going to enjoy this fusion of science and comedy, and you can take a little break from your studies on this snowy day. Feel free to also grab a snack or your favorite libation. So while we're actually unable to have a real audience because this is Zoom after all, we have selected a few people to have their mics on for this event. We're going to figure this out as we go along. This is still like a big science experiment for us. And we're all here to laugh as well. So we've also opened up the Q&A window. So feel free to ask any questions that you might have about the brain and how we understand humor, or anything that comes up when these two are talking. And we will relay as much as we can to the comedians when we get a chance to. So I'm Dee, and I'm the Director of Student Life, and I am joined here by Roberto, who is the President of the Neuroscience Outreach Group and Student Life Committee member who has helped me so much to fund this event. And thank you so much, Roberto. And we'll be moderating the chat window. So without further ado, I'll give it to Roberto.
All right, well, I'd like to introduce our special guest this evening. So Sukumar is a neuroscientist and a professor of physiology and biophysics here at CU Anschutz. He was the director of the neuroscience PhD program for 7 years, during which he shared many philosophical, scientific conversations with students. He also wanted me to add that he recently got nominated for the Nobel Prize. And before the pandemic began, Suk decided to try his luck at stand-up comedy, which brings him here with us today. And we're also joined by Nancy Norton, who is a renowned comedian from Colorado who is regularly featured at Comedy Works in Denver. She can be found on Amazon Prime Video, A&E, Nickelodeon, and PBS. She's also the 40th annual Seattle International Comedy Competition champion and was the first ever woman to win the Boston Comedy Festival in 2018. So we're thrilled to have Nancy and Suk joining us, and yeah, take it away.
All right, give it up for Roberto and Dee. Yeah, I brought the applause. I brought the applause for you all. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. I thought I would start off because ego. I thought, yeah, I've been doing comedy longer than Sukumar, although he is going to quickly pass me by. I've been doing it 30 years, kids, 30 years. You knew I was older. My name is Nancy, all right? I haven't made a Nancy since 1964, and I am not a late model Nancy. Okay. My son, I have a teenage son, and my name is Nancy. His first words were hot flash. Yeah, you'd see my neck turn red, put himself in a timeout. And you may hear a little twang in my voice. I live in Colorado now, but I am from the Ozarks, so you are not wrong when you hear the twang. I know a lot of people are curious, which trailer park? Okay, yeah. Not everybody in the Ozarks lives in a trailer park, okay? There's a huge waiting list. Just so you know, you don't just get in there. You have to show some earnest effort. You start with a pickup truck and a camper shell, you build your dream, you get a vision board and you manifest that. And I did, I made it to the double wide. Watch what you pray for. Things do not always go well. You've all seen that half a trailer going down the highway. That is an Ozark divorce. All right, I'm giving myself a laugh. We brought in an audience, but they muted themselves. So I'm taking care of it.
Are we not supposed to mute ourselves?
Oh,
No.
I mean, the idea was to you know, because laughter is contagious.
We have been laughing.
We're laughing.
But I was like, you know what? This is going great. This is going great. Actually, this has been hilarious because I have been doing stand-up for 30 years. And then all of a sudden now I'm talking to a little green dot and some Brady Bunch rectangles who are usually muted. And so I just make up that people are in fact laughing. But
we're laughing.
I'm killing it. I'm killing it here in my garage in Colorado. Anyway, the truth is, yes, I am Nancy. I am of a certain age where my memory is slipping slightly. And my son does take advantage of that, by the way. My son, who is a teenager now. And have you ever tried to punish a teenager with a timeout? Anybody? Doesn't work. They're just like, yeah, I'll go to my room. Duh. I'll just live there. I just want to tell you, I just found this out. I think I'm going to come up with a parenting book. Put them in a time in. They hate that. You want to have some family time? Hey, you going to empty that dishwasher or do you want to have some family time? Right now, we're going to play Scrabble and eat some sherbet. Watch a little Bridgerton with your mother. Huh? Okay. Time in. Threaten them with a time in. So I had these memory issues and I just want to share this. This is actually, I am going to tie this into neuroscience, I promise. I was losing my nouns and worried about my memory. So I started studying a little bit on my own about neuroplasticity and stumbled on these articles about the neuropathways of humor. And as a comedian and a former nurse, I am a registered nurse. I got out of nursing for the same reason a lot of people get into it, to save lives. Not a great nurse. But the point is, I do have a little bit of a science background. I took a lot of level 100, like 40 years ago. So 40 years ago, I took anatomy and physiology. Can't remember it because memory issues. Anyway, stumbled on these articles. And then I had learned about Norman Cousins back in the 80s, and that was pretty exciting about helping the immune system with humor. But I had never read the articles that were joined with MRI studies, and these MRI studies that showed that you enliven all the major lobes of your brain to get a joke, and then it, throws it back to the occipital lobe, and you picture that half a trailer going down the highway. Then you get the involuntary laughter, hopefully. Otherwise, I have to hit this button. So anyway, I was reading these articles and they said humor really helps with creative problem solving. And it also helps with lowering your stress and increasing your health in all different ways and bonding you with your family and teammates and helps businesses with job retention. And I was so excited. And I knew a neuroscientist, a friend of mine named Sukumar, whose daughter goes to the same camp that my son goes to. And I was so excited to tell him that I had read 17 articles and I now know everything there is to know. And I was like, Sukumar, this is so exciting. Have you read the MRI studies that show that we use all the major lobes of our brain to get a joke? And then he said,
that's not right. Well, so I still have a bucket of cold water here next to me for this show. And for the viewers, today I'm going to be the straight man here, so Nancy is going to do all the fun part.
I'm usually the straight man, just to be honest.
So, somebody asked me whether this talk was going to be heavily neuroscience related, but we have done this with the assumption that most of the audience is not neuroscientists. And Nancy and I have had this conversation a few times over the last 8 years or so, and we thought we'll just convert one of our conversations into a webinar, and I think so. This is going to be pitched at a level that Nancy can understand.
Just barely, too. Thank you, Sukumar. And let's not forget, we've had the same conversation for 8 years because of my memory issues. I almost said Emery misuse. Now, what is that? What part of the brain does that? My Emery misuse. Misuse. All right.
So anyway, so I think Nancy has read a lot about humor and neuroscience, and I sort of work in the area of neuroscience, but neither of us are cognitive neuroscientists, so neither of us are experts in this area. And so
that's our disclaimer.
To paraphrase, what did you say?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I was just saying that is our disclaimer.
That's our disclaimer. Yeah. This is the fine print. I'm reading out the fine print. I'm supposed to read it out really fast.
That's right.
So, so, to paraphrase an old adage, both of us know enough about this topic to think we are right, but not enough to know about it to know that we are wrong. So that's where we are. And I think, so enjoy this webinar. To the extent, and what I hope is that by the end of it, you'll come away from this webinar with a changed perspective of how to think about the brain and how to think about humor and how to think about the two together. So
that's beautiful, Sukumar. That is beautiful to have that, and I hope that you come away from this. Yeah, give it up for Sukumar, everybody. That was beautiful. Yeah, man. Just a brilliant launch of the webinar. I just want to say, my intention and hope and dream is that you all come away from this as confused as I am, because I actually before we started really thinking about doing this webinar, I've been cramming like a kid for a final, and the last 2 days, and now I feel like I'm completely confused now because I'm holding myself to a little bit of a higher standard. Sukumar, your improv adage was perfect about this. You know, where it's yes and I come to you with this excitement and I expect you to go yes and what do you do?
I do yes, but.
Yeah, that's his improv style. So, but I really do what I am a little. So here's what I realized after looking at looking a little more in depth, is that I clearly was curating the articles that were basically I wanted them to support my keynote talks, which is we need humor. Humor actually will help us. We've evolved with humor. I want to say it's a basic human need, but that is Nancy talking, and I swear there was one article that said that, and I cannot find it. But I will say this. I want people to think about adding a little more humor to every single day, because I really believe, and I have only anecdotal evidence on this one for myself, that it will improve your life, enhance your life, give you empowerment over your stress, trauma, fear, phobias, and the pandemic. I think we can cure the pandemic. Put a disclaimer right there. But I actually really do think it can help your immune system and cope with all the stresses that, especially the ones of the last year. So let's go back to those MRI studies. I think that might be a nice place to start, since that's how I came to you, Sukumar. The first thing I remember you telling me, because I felt like, oh, I've got proof, because look, we've got MRI studies, functional MRIs, fMRIs, that show all this beautiful color. I don't know what it means, green, yellow, or red, but I will tell you this, it was beautiful. It said it enlivened all the major lobes of your brain to get a joke, and that said that gave us more resourcing for creative problem solving, put us in an expansive place of thinking. And then you helped me understand why that was yes, but.
Yeah, so I think the fMRI uses a unique property of the brain, and that is, unlike other parts of your body, the circulation in your brain is directed to areas that are needed at any given moment. So it goes to active areas. So the idea was that you could see which parts of your brain are being activated by following this blood supply that goes into these areas. And so you look at how much oxygenated blood is traveling to one particular area, and we won't go into the chemistry of it. It has to do with hemoglobin and the iron and the water surrounding these molecules. But so it tells you what areas are lighting up for any given.
I love that, actually, and I'm going to be the dork that stops you, because I know you're like, oh, people don't want to hear how an MRI works, but I found that really fascinating. I actually thought that you touched on it. You said the hemoglobin that carries the iron that somehow interacts with the magnets in the MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. I just thought that was really interesting. I didn't understand that. As a nurse, I never knew how an MRI. Of course, back in my day, they did not have MRI.
Yeah. So I think the issue is that MRI has a poor temporal resolution and not enough spatial resolution to know what exactly is going on in those particular areas. So the resolution of an fMRI, is anywhere from about 1 to 3 cubic millimeters, and that area, 1 to 3 cubic,
I'm trying to demonstrate. Okay.
A 1 cubic millimeter of a brain area would have about something in the order of 50,000 neurons, and about 1,000 times that in terms of synapses where the action really is. So you're talking about 50 million synapses or 5 million synapses. So it's a huge amount of activity that's happening under that area. And also, synapses are excitatory or inhibitory, whichever way they work. They do consume energy, and therefore the fMRI would give you a signal, but you don't know what really is happening there.
Yeah, you don't know if it's exciting or it's inhibiting. And
Yeah.
I think most of mine are inhibiting just because of my mother.
Yeah,
I'm not
so
sure.
there is a specific mother circuit that goes around you. So I think, and also, it has a very poor temporal resolution. So think about what happens. So as I said, the brain, the circulation is localized to areas that need it. So whenever there's activity in one area, there are these cells called astrocytes that get activated, and then they relax the blood vessels around that area. So blood rushes in there. So, but it is a multiple step process. And so it's a very delayed thing. And so you're looking at a blood flow after the fact, because the neurons have been activated and gone. And now you're looking at the blood flow. So what is not very clear is what we are looking at. And there's another caveat to it that I'll come to later on in this webinar. So
Sukumar, did you want to share, because when you were saying it's a multi-step process, did you mean getting a joke, or were you talking about the MRI?
No, just the MRI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was an honest question. And then, because you were telling me, and maybe this is what you're getting to, about how long it takes the brain to make a
right.
how long to get a joke between hearing it and
so that is the other thing people have done is looked at what are called event-related potentials, where you trigger an event. In this case, let's say a joke and a punchline, and then look at voltage changes on an EEG, and you get these different peaks that are very characteristic of different components of a response. And so you can get positive deflections in voltage or negative deflections in voltage, and they are referred to as P or N peaks. Cognitive processes, including when a joke is told, sort of elicit a characteristic N400 peak, where 400 stands for 400 milliseconds after the onset of this measurement. So there might be characteristic peaks, but this is a pretty common thing for almost all cognitive tasks that we do. So it's not very clear what it tells us. Now, so these ERPs give you a very good temporal resolution, but these are just scalp electrodes. So we have no idea what's happening inside on the brain. So that's that's another problem with that.
Well, I don't know what the term temporal resolution, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, time resolution. So
temp. Oh, it's Latin. Okay. I don't know. In the Ozarks, my dad used to say, "Tempest keeps a fugitive." Is that Ozark Latin? I have no idea.
Ozark Latin. The Romans who moved to Ozarks.
I remember that year.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I've been telling Nancy, which is why I keep throwing cold water on her.
Which is crushing my spirit. You're crushing me.
I'm not validating you first. That's the problem.
Oh, right. You got to validate first. But no, yes, but you don't even say yes. You just say no. You just say
no, but no.
You're wrong.
No, and
So,
that's my improv.
That's even better than yes, but. I like that. No, and here's why.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of data that's been reported in the literature, but they are sort of scattered, and it's hard to. There is no effort to sort of normalize measurements, because each of those studies have different kinds of people. Some use right-handers, some use left-handers, some use people with mental illness, and so on and so forth. So it is still early days in the field, so we don't really know very much. And one of the things is that we shouldn't make too much of it at this point. It's my point.
I think that is the point you're going to be making again and again. We can't know it. But I just read an article today that I haven't shared with you. Okay, skimmed it. I skimmed it with my good eye. I have one eye that works, which is that we could bring that up at the meeting. Is there any way, that I was born cross-eyed? And I wonder, did that have something to do with me being funny? Because people laugh, when you're. My question I had, what was it? Oh, I just read this article. I do have ADD as well. Cross-eyed, ADD. I don't know, man. I think I was born to do comedy. But I was reading this article about sex difference between female and male brains. And I've noticed, and this is kind of interesting to me, that I'm the first female to win the Boston Comedy Festival, and that's been going on 20 years, and I'm the first woman to win Seattle in 34 years. There was one other woman that has won it in 34. I'm trying to say, why is that? But hey, yeah, why not get myself a plug out there? Again, you already introduced me. But people have interviewed me since then and asked, like, why? What is it that men, or not just men, but people in general, I think, in society do not perceive women as funny as men? And then this one study that I skimmed, and I will show you later, and I wish I could cite like all these parts of the brain, but it basically was about cognitive and affect processing, and women tended to take a little more time and go a little, I don't know, the pictures of the MRIs seem bigger on the women process. They look like this. And it was like, oh, because I've noticed that my comedy is emotional based. And a lot of males, not all, and this is overgeneralized, and I'm a tomboy and I'm a gender bender, so maybe there's a part of me that's how I managed to finagle a win because, I'm a bit butch. But in my dreams, butch women do laugh at me when I tell them that. But the point is that I tend to tell long stories like this. I cannot end this sentence. I am still talking, but I'm just trying to say, what do you think? Have you read any of that? I didn't even tell you about that. I just read it today, but it just was interesting to me that women, a lot more of emotional involvement. And like my boyfriend, who may or may not be listening, put your name in the chat, Bob. He's very punny, and he's very punny with my son. My son and my son does dad jokes because he doesn't have a dad. Bob, if you're listening. Okay, but my son wrote this joke when he was 7. What do you? I'm proposing to Bob. No, what do you see? We are going to break up right after this. What do you see when aliens get diarrhea? My son wrote this joke when he was 7. What do you see when aliens get diarrhea? Mysterious crap circles. I would never have written that joke. Okay, back to you, Sukumar. Anything male, female, left, right brain? I don't know.
No, none of, I think going back to what I said before, I think none of these things are clear enough to form any kind of conclusions on this. And in fact, I was talking to a colleague of mine who said, he'll believe in the fMRIs if in response to puns, the pain pathway is activated.
Zing! Nice. Oh, are there any questions? Anything in the chat that anyone would like to ask? Bob, you have any questions? Lynn, I think you're out there. Lynn, you have any questions for either one of us? Feel free to put it in the chat. I can't read, but we have some PhDs who will read to you.
We have our first question from Trevor, who is sitting with Lynn, I'm assuming. So
Trevor.
Asking,
oh, he's going to try and stump us.
what if you tell a joke to a mouse or a Drosophila, which is a fruit fly, as they have smaller brains for an MRI?
Can you repeat the question?
And Trevor is asking, what if you tell a joke to a mouse or a Drosophila, and that's a fruit fly, as they have smaller brains for an MRI?
I'll tell you what, I kill on the fruit fly circuit. And I do have my own audience of mice in my house. I don't know if that are my rats are a lot smarter than mice, I know, but don't be a snob, Trevor.
Yeah.
Well, what
Trevor,
if, you know,
Trevor
this,
kept hedgehogs, so he should be telling jokes to his hedgehogs.
hey, this might be a good time to talk about the tickling of rats. It feels
You
like a
wanna do
natural
that?
segue.
Or there was something about neurotransmitters which I was ready to throw cold water on.
That would be, that's my cue.
Nancy,
Oh, I'm on top of this. I got you. No, it's seriously one of the great things that again, anecdotal evidence, I should have depression based on my life situation. But I feel great because I laugh at all my pain. And that brings us to neurotransmitters. How nice was that segue? That was pretty good. Okay, so here's what I read, that it, you know, enhances mood by releasing serotonin and dopamine and the whole reward circuit, which I enjoy. I get on that humor hamster wheel all the time just to make myself feel better. So what do you think? I mean, how do they measure the neurotransmitters? I forgot what I was supposed to say, Sukumar. Is there more? I think it's through PET technology, but I don't even remember what the PET stands for.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, but also, you know, if you think about raising serotonin or dopamine transiently, it's not clear what they do, right? In fact, you know, things like depression and low moods are very complex things. And if you go through the history of antidepressants, you know, first it was norepinephrine that was targeted, then it is serotonin, and there are like Wellbutrin that targets the dopamine pathway. And so it's not, again, intuitively, it's not very clear as to how these things act. And so when we say that, you know, mood elevation by humor, clearly that's true in the sense I on an anecdotal level, right? So I think I find it, you know, very refreshing to laugh when I'm depressed. So I think, and on other occasions, as we'll talk about later. But I think, again, it goes to this whole idea of not to make things too simplistic and draw conclusions. You know, in fact,
Yeah, and that's what I've based my career on. Is to oversimplified. Here it is, cookie cutter. Let me tell you, and I guess I need to mature a little as a presenter, as I sometimes do give continuing education units at my talks. So I do read peer review articles, but I only the ones I like.
Yeah, I think it's a little it bears to be a little cautious when interpreting these kind of things.
Well, let's talk about why be cautious. I mean, am I going to kill anyone with humor? I mean, so I wish I was killing right now, but I have so far had one standing ovation in my life, and I think it was awkward. I think they were like, okay, I guess we should. All right.
No, I think it's perfectly fine to talk about evidence, you know, that are anecdotal and stuff like that. So the issue is when you bring science into it, then you raise the stakes enough that you need to be justifying a lot more than just saying that, no, humor.
Yeah.
When I'm depressed, I tell a joke, I feel happy, and that's perfectly fine. But when I say that's because my serotonin goes up, then it's a problem.
Okay. I respect that. And this is what you have. I have so much respect for you scientists. Are you four who are over here, Courtney, Michael, Roberto, and Sam, are you all in, what program are you all in?
We all are in the neuroscience program.
I did graduate from the neuroscience program.
You have your doctorate.
I have my doctorate.
Wow, give it up for Courtney and her doctorate. Woo! I just respect you all so much because what a downer. I mean, it's so much fun from the outside, fantasizing about being a scientist. I actually tested in high school. I remember the little pie chart said medical research. You should do medical research. That is hilarious to me now because I have the 80, I go to the veneer level. I get the veneer and I'm satisfied. So, all right, I'm trying to mature as somebody who is pontificating about this. So thank you, Sukumar. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so I think, let's talk a bit about what is laughter and what it does, I guess. I was at the barber shop about 3 months ago, I guess. I went.
Looks like 4 months. Would everybody agree? It looks a little more like 4 months ago.
My hair doesn't grow, so it doesn't matter. So it's a constant battle between them falling off and growing longer. So.
And that is a wig.
Yeah, and a wig with a bald pattern back, so that it looks authentic.
Yeah.
So I think so I was reading one of those glossy magazines, People, Us, whatever it was, and it said that every time you laugh, you add 2 minutes to your life. Okay, so I think that's the benefit of laughter. But that really pissed me off because I spent many years trying to quit smoking, and one of the reasons I did was the fact that every time you smoke, you lose 5 minutes of your life. So now I wish I had known this because all I needed to do was to laugh twice. Wait, that's only 4 minutes. Say let's make it 2 laughs and a giggle, and I needn't have given up smoking at all. So,
and
so
eat a donut. And eat a donut.
Yeah. So I think is there what's the difference between laughter and humor, I guess. And here I think we should look at the video of rats. Was it a rat or a mouse? It's a rat, I think. Rat being tickled and having.
It looked like a calico cat.
It's definitely a rat then.
Right, I'm gonna go ahead and play it right now. Let me know if there's any problems.
Researchers at Humboldt University of Berlin have been.
Oh, the sound went out.
Why did I not choose that PhD?
In 1999, scientists found young rats also vocalize when they're tickled. Are they actually laughing? What does a rat's voice sound like? The typical hearing range of a human is 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Rats vocalize at 20 to 100 kHz. They make long calls at 22 kHz when they're scared or annoyed. And when they're happy, they make short calls at 50 kHz. For example, when they interact with other rats and they're given food. A bit like when human voices go higher when we're excited or having fun. So here's the sound a rat makes if you tickle its back. The sound has been converted to a lower frequency that we humans can hear, but the source frequency is mainly 50 kHz. Apparently, the rat likes being tickled, not just because of the frequency of its calls, but because when the tickling stops, the rat doesn't turn away, but looks to see where the hand has gone. Rats recognize the researcher's hand as their playmate and approach the hand to be tickled more. Eventually, they start chasing the hand rapidly while vocalizing at 50 kHz. Signals from the body surface reach a brain area called the somatosensory cortex, like a map of the entire body, with distinct regions for each body part. Trunk, front legs, back legs. The researcher tickled the rats and measured the activity in the trunk region, which is the most ticklish part of a rat's body. Here is the activity of neurons in the trunk region when a rat is tickled. Thin vertical lines indicate electrical activity in the neuronal cells. Signals from the trunk are being sent to this brain region. Does this neural activity represent ticklishness? If it is the case, activation of these neurons without actually tickling the body must be enough for the rat to feel ticklish. To test it, the researchers stimulated the neurons electrically. The rat emits short calls at 50 kilohertz when its brain is stimulated. Thus, the researcher found out that ticklishness is represented by activity of the neurons in the somatosensory cortex.
I am.
That was fascinating. I'm glad they didn't. How did they stimulate the neurons? Did they have the brain open, or how are they doing that?
Yeah, so they would have probably drilled a hole in it.
Drill a hole. I'm glad they didn't show that part.
No, but I think one of the reasons of this was that, you know, this was done in humans as well many years ago, right? Where they stimulated was this guy called Wilder Penfield, who was a Canadian neurophysiologist, who stimulated various parts of the brain in people and asked them what they felt, right? So what he felt was what he found was that there are certain areas in the brain where he could stimulate and it would elicit a laughter. But depending on the area, it either was laughter by itself or laughter with mirth. So actually feeling something funny, right? So I think those are two different things. So there is a dissociation in his experiments where from just being just laughing to laughing and finding something funny. And I think that's the thing, is that, so the question goes back, is laughter the best medicine, or is humor the best medicine? So is laughter sufficient to get to whatever changes you want, you were talking about in terms of personal experience?
Do you have? Do you have a conclusion? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's it. So I think that is something that people have found also with things like deep brain stimulation. Now, deep brain stimulation is used for treatment of diseases like severe depressions and Parkinson's. And again, you can elicit laughter by depending on where the electrode is being placed in the brain. And so the other thing to know is that there are a whole bunch of areas where you can elicit laughter with or without mirth. And I think,
really? Not just
again,
like one area.
Yeah. So again, it goes to this idea, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit, right? Where your idea of things going from the frontal cortex to the parietal cortex to the occipital lobe. So I don't think things work that way, and so I think that's where we are headed now, I guess.
You don't think that when you get a joke, like the first articles I read, and I'm way oversimplifying it because it was like first you hear the words in your speech center on the left hemisphere, then it goes up to your frontal cortex, you put it up against your social constructs, and I don't know what. I forgot. Then it goes, and then somehow the right hemisphere has to do with assimilating patterns. But where is the memory? The hippocampus, is it bilateral? Are there two hippocampi, or is there just one?
Yes, no, there are two.
There are two in each. Okay, so then that's all right. Well, anyway, and then it said it threw it back to the occipital lobe and then to the midbrain involuntary response. But that's way oversimplified. I get that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a tendency to think linearly, right? So we want to know this goes to there, to there, and I think one of the problems we have with the brain is that we don't think it works linearly.
Mine doesn't.
And I think so this is where we were talking about this idea of what is a good metaphor for the brain, right? So I think a good metaphor for the brain a good metaphor to think about how the brain works is probably like a symphony orchestra, right? So there are structures that are meant to do some functions, like there's where the string section is, where the brass section is, where the percussion section is, but the idea that that your Mozart symphony is coming from one place is probably not right. So you can pinpoint to where each of these where the violins are, where the tubas are, or I don't know, you don't have tuba in a orchestra, right? So in a symphony orchestra. So anyway, so the clarinets are, but the issue is that you know where they are, but you don't know where the synthesized music is coming from.
Oh,
And I
nice
think
point.
that's where the issue is. And I think this has been a problem with fMRIs, at least the early fMRIs, where, you know, people are much more obsessed with finding, you know, specific locus of any output that we're looking at. But it's more in the interactions between these areas that you say that a meaning or a cognitive process arises. So which is why, you know, we started off by saying, you know, that we shouldn't make this more simplistic, right? So it's a nonlinear thing that's complex, and it's something that we really don't have a really good handle on as yet.
Okay, you've convinced me. But
So shall we go?
yeah, I think we're done. I think we're done here. Everybody's satisfied.
So, but the issue of laughter, right? So is it always? It doesn't always have to be with. It doesn't always have to be funny, I guess, right?
Thank God. Yeah.
So I think the situations at which we laugh, probably some of them are funny, some of them are not.
Yeah.
But somehow we laugh for some reason.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I actually got scolded, and I'm going to tell you where. In therapy, I was scolded by my therapist saying, "That's not funny." She actually said that to a comedian. Like, you can't hurt me more. Like, why would you ruin me in my session? But the point is, I was talking about a trauma, and that's really interesting to me. And I'm not going to, don't worry, trigger warning. I'm not going to go into detail about the trauma here, but I will on my podcast called Traumedy, launching soon. Okay. Coping with trauma with comedy. But what I said to her is like, that feels shaming, because I got told that a lot, that I laughed inappropriately, and I did get written up as a nurse a couple of times. I'm sorry, but if you come to my ER with a hand in a baggie and 19 nails in your head, I am going to have to release some of that tension. Oh my goodness. Okay. And that's and anyway, let's drop, I can tell you how that story ends later. But the point is, I don't know what the point is. My ADD just kicked in, and I have no idea if I had a point. But I just want to say, there's something about I feel like when people say that's not funny, it doesn't mean it's also not sad, traumatic, painful, you know, all that other stuff, but that the humor makes it more manageable for me. And I don't know where that would be in the neuroscience.
Yeah,
but
so this is the thing, right? So sometimes is it really humor or not? And I think just the laughter itself releases some tension. And now this goes to something I had a pathology when I was in middle school. So I went to this Irish Catholic middle school, and
dear God, I did a spit take on that. Yeah.
So,
Sukumar at the Irish Catholic Middle School. It's Sukumar.
yeah.
Big
So
Sukumar.
These are all Irish Catholic brothers whose, you know, default for anything was to beat the crap out of you. So it was all corporal, heavy on the corporal punishment stuff, right? You know, yeah. So their education philosophy was, you know, no child's behind left. So I think so here's what happened. And on 2 occasions, somebody died, right? And so we all went to the chapel, you know, to pay our respects, and there's a body there, and you have this 2-minute silence. But something about silence, you know, would give me the fits of giggles, right? So I just couldn't control myself, and there was nothing inherently funny about either the situation or what I was feeling at that time, right? So you know, so I start giggling, and then, you know, I pay for it later. You know, the guy would wail on me with a cane, and I'd get beaten up. So both those times I got beaten up pretty severely. But again,
they could not beat the humor out of you. That's a whole nother study.
Wait, we have a question over here. Did these deaths occur from the kids beating other kids up? We're confused on this point. And we
No,
need
these were two of the priests who died.
Oh, okay. Okay. Different.
Look how it makes him laugh even now.
We thought the kids were beating each other up to death, and it
No,
was
no, no. I think
no.
we were laughing, and that was disturbing. It was the whole thing.
Oh,
yeah. So, but I don't know where that laughter comes from and what purpose it served, other than setting me up for a solid beating with a cane. So I.
yeah, but I think that when you say, I would like to encourage you, as you have encouraged me to broaden my look at science, I would like to encourage you to broaden your look at humor. And I know because you're scholarly and you like scholarly jokes, but I love exploiting tension, because, and that's one of the theories of humor is Pete McGraw, who's actually a professor at CU, wrote this whole book called The Humor Code, which I meant to bring down here into my studio and show it to the people. But he wrote this book, and his theory is the benign violation theory. But I also think there's a lot of theories like the relief theory, where there's tension, and that still is humor. I still feel that's humor. I still feel there's a cognitive process because here you are, a boy with your whole life ahead of you looking at a corpse. And it's just a weird juxtaposition, right? I mean, it's like, I feel like the existential crisis is intolerable. And that's when it's like, you feel immortal. You feel immortal at that age, but you're looking at a dead person. Was it an open casket?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
You would remember that, I think. Although I have an idea.
But here's the point, though. I think the response was not to somebody dying. The response was to silence. That's what I couldn't take.
That's what is intolerable to you.
Yeah. So I think that was the thing. Right?
That was more the challenge.
And I don't know if I've grown out of it. I might still do that. Luckily, I haven't had to find that out.
We'll have to test that one. Well, that reminds me of that Mary Tyler Moore episode. If anybody is a fan of the Mary Tyler Moore show, I just thought I grew up on that show and it was really well written. You kids look on your Hulu or your YouTubes. And there's this episode, really seriously, Google the episode, Chuckles Bites the Dust. And it's about a clown that dies. And then Mary Tyler Moore, everybody keeps making jokes about the clown that died at a circus dressed as a peanut. An elephant. An elephant tried to shuck him. And anyway, I don't know why that episode makes me laugh every time. And then she's shaming everybody through the whole episode for like, a man died. Chuckles the clown is dead. And then she goes to the funeral, and you just have to watch that scene where Mary Tyler Moore tries to hold it together as they talk about all of the Chuckles the clown moments. Okay, I've ruined the joke, but I don't know what the point was other than I wanted to win, not an argument, but I was hoping to persuade you, Sukumar, is like, hey, would you look at this as humor? Relief, is part of humor.
It's a relief, but yeah, so I don't know. That's what I'm not.
Damn it. All I'm going to get is I don't know.
The data is not there.
Okay. Well,
but honestly though, I'm not sure. I laughed because I found something funny. I laughed because I was uncomfortable, and that's the only response I had at that point to it, right?
But okay, all right.
So
it was more of just a physical stress release.
Yeah, so there is a stress release component to it, but
yeah,
I don't think there's much of a humor component to it.
All right, I'm gonna keep working on challenging.
So again,
I'm gonna work it on challenging because I think there is a part of your psyche that got that joke. You don't even get it yet.
Yeah, that's true.
It's still, but I think there's a part of you subconsciously because, back in the day, what Freud was saying, humor and dreams were very similar, that they release subconscious thoughts. You are still suppressing that, whatever that is.
I know. I need to go back to therapy to get these memories out.
You should never have left. I mean, I'm just basing it on my experience.
Time for a question.
Oh yes, time for questions.
So we have a question from Linny who asks, how does timing relate to the neurological pathway of humor?
Wait, what is the question?
Timing?
How does timing relate to the neurological path of humor?
I'll take a stab at it, and then I'll turn it over to the person who knows.
Who's that?
I think you're talking about comedic timing.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel like this goes into the incongruity theory of comedy, is that timing gives you enough time to guess where I'm going, that I don't get ahead of you or behind you, but I stay right with you. Like earlier when I first was doing my jokes, my timing was off. I don't know if you noticed, but I was rushing my jokes because I was a little nervous and you guys had your mics muted and I was panicking. So my timing was off and I got a little ahead. And it's just, to me, it's about that, trying to sync up with the person's thought processes that you might guess, although I'm a little bit Southern, so I am kind of slow. I don't know. That's my theory about timing. If that's
No, I think that
makes comedic timing.
Yeah, so that makes perfect sense, right? So you need enough time for the setup to register, and then have the punchline. So if you do that before the setup registers in somebody's mind, they're not going to understand it or find it funny. So the timing does matter in terms of processing times in the brain.
And as a person who has worked thousands and thousands of shows, and I get that it doesn't always look that way, but I've performed, in really drunk bar environments where I have to slow down and also do a lot more sexual humor because people tend to relate to the simpler concepts in the bar setting. And then if I'm performing, which I have been fortunate enough to perform for Mensa members and MIT guys, and that's how I won that Boston Comedy Festival, because I had my closing joke, which I will tell you right now, because I'll just tell you my closing joke. And I could do it faster, and I knew this audience, and the whole front, like 3 rows were all from MIT at this big theater in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I was just talking about my sexual orientation. I retired as a lesbian. I was fired. I'm no longer, an L. I've lost my status. I'm not a B. I'm a P. I'm a bisexual. I have sex every 3.14159 years. I'm exaggerating. Please join my parade. We're going to march in a big circle and divide ourselves by our diameter. And that goes on and on. So bring a sack lunch. Anyway, if I know my audience, I can go faster. Or if they're drunk and I go, don't do the math jokes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The timing and knowing who the audience is probably what you need to be aware of when you do this, right? It's like me doing an Indian accent. I think I told you that, right? So this
is my favorite story. Sukumar doing a joke with what he thinks is not his Indian accent.
Exactly. Right. So that's what happened. So I thought, wouldn't it be really funny if an Indian guy did an Indian accent like it's done? Right? So I did that, and there was dead silence. So after that, people thought this was just how I was talking all through the whole set, right? So I think knowing all that is important.
Whereas if you, like you said, you did an open mic in India, and then they know the dialects from different states.
Right.
And then they would hear like, oh, he's clearly doing a different Indian accent now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that other joke that I thought was good.
Okay. So, but this is a joke that worked very well with an Indian audience about a few months ago. But it requires some explanation for this audience, I guess. So this has to do with people from Bengal, and they have this idiosyncrasy where every time there's a U, there's the letter U as an umbrella, they pronounce it as AU, right? So they'll say umbrella, and so if you say I munch on a bunch of grapes, they'll say I munch on a bunch of grapes. So that's the background you need to know. And the joke was, why did NASA have so many aborted missions? And the answer was that they hired too many Bengalis, because every time somebody said launch, they went to the cafeteria. So
I do want to say it's really cool that our paths crossed, that I came to you to share my curiosity about neuroscience and humor and my arrogance about it. Let's just say I thought I knew stuff. And then you were vulnerable and said, I've always wanted to try stand-up comedy. And I tricked you into getting on stage at a fundraiser and you killed it. And it's just kind of, I'm going to go ahead and say frustrating because it took me 2 or 3 years to get a laugh. And you were like, boom, boom, boom. You have such great writing. Anyway, if you guys get a chance to go see Sukumar do stand up, you should go see it because, well, you've already seen it if you've had him as a teacher. Hey, that brings us up to that. Hey, remember what you were saying? We were talking about memory and humor and how it helps with remembering things. And I was reading some anecdotal evidence. And I mean, she calls it out as anecdotal evidence in that book we were reading, the Neuroscience of Cognitive, the Cognitive Neuroscience of Humor. That author was saying, she's a professor, and she said it's some really dry content that the kids usually only got 50% correct. Sorry if I say kids. Everybody under 50 is a kid. So then she accidentally had a slip of the tongue, like I did a little bit ago, and somehow got a laugh with the kids. And then on that particular lecture day, they got 100% on that content that usually they only got 50% of. So you were saying something about your students give you feedback every now and then.
Well, this is one feedback I got from my students. So I teach medical students about hormones. And so one of the comments I got was, we pay attention in this class because we don't know where the next joke is coming from. So I think, I said, I'd take that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody said we pay attention because he's a good teacher.
That's why we're stealing you away from the university and getting you into the bars where you belong. To do stand up.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you this, but I've now won more than $200 in alcohol coupons. That's been my payment for doing stand up for a year. So yeah, they pay me in alcohol coupons.
Yeah, when you start out, that's what you get. You get drink tickets at different bars. If you're not an alcoholic when you start the business, hang in there.
Yeah, so it's going to be either going to be Tonight Show or Rehab. So it's one of the two.
And then actually Rehab's great material.
Maybe that's a good point.
Well, it seems like we covered a lot of different things. We talked a little about humor theories, the relief theories, I'm doing I'm not even drinking, but I'm thinking about starting. I do keep bourbon I do have a flask, so maybe that'll help.
What's the time?
It's a humor question for you guys from Trevor.
Trevor.
So, why are jokes so much funnier when you're stoned?
Isn't everything funnier when you're stoned?
Let's ask the students. This is a better question for the students.
Don't call us out.
It's legal now, so you're okay.
Doesn't it do something to calm down your nerves? Because that's what I find when I use it for pain. But anyway.
Do you find things funnier?
No, I haven't, but I get no, I'm Canadian, so I have to be careful.
All right. Well, I got to be honest, now that there are these dab bars or whatever and places where I have performed for really high people, and sometimes I think they think they're laughing. They're kind of giggling to themselves. I don't know. I guess they think it's funny, but sometimes it depends. I think there's a perfect, whatever the optimum amount. Sometimes I think if you're too high, I don't think they always get.
Yeah, and I think Trevor, I'm not sure. I think they just think things are funnier. I don't think, it's like everything else. So many years ago, when I joined, I was an assistant professor. There was another faculty member, and about a couple of us would get together, smoke a joint, and play the guitar. And so one day we decided to record it. And so we recorded for about an hour and a half. And believe it, then next day we played it. There were just two chords playing again and again and again. We had no idea about it. We thought it was great. We were really jamming.
It's like that. It's like that Cheech and Chong album when the guy's like
Exactly.
starts playing a solo and he's like, "Give that guy a harmonica." Yeah.
So it's all. It might not have basis in reality, is what I'm saying.
That was a good question, though, Trevor. And are you high right now?
But everyone wants to know if there's any neuroscience behind this, and that's from Lynn.
What does Lynn want to know?
If there's any neuroscience behind this?
Behind this whole webinar? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know what she means.
Behind what you guys were just talking about, being stoned and laughing. Funny.
Oh yeah, I don't know enough about.
Well, we do know that the weed binds to cannabinoid receptors, and we know that these receptors are present, in a number of areas in the brain, both and also on terminals of axons in the in neurons. So there is definitely a basis to claim that it does something, but going back to what I was saying, we don't know what humor is. So I don't know what. It's hard to say how cannabinoids would affect.
I would like to. I'm going to just. What I found out is if you just everybody get a fake joint and just go and hold your breath. I think it's oxygen because if you just talk like that, you feel kind of stoned. What about these cannabinoids? You should try it. Pass it around. And what about those? Okay, I want to talk about the opioid receptors because, and I don't know how they document all that, but that when we laugh, we get endogenous morphine, and it's the healthy way to get your opioids. It's not the the addictive kind. Is there also an endogenous cannabinoid?
Yes, there are endogenous molecules that act as cannabinoid.
How do you get those to release? Maybe you get them to release like this. You don't even need whatever was in that hand. Seriously, you guys should try it. I just do anecdotal evidence, but I can feel a little stoned doing that from high school. All right, so opioid receptors. I would like to bring that up at the meeting, which is we actually do get pain relief, and that there are a lot of studies that support this, that people have a higher pain threshold after they've laughed or during laughter, that they
unless it's puns.
That's right. We're hitting the pun people heavy and hard today. How long do people want to hang out? Do we want to talk about anything else about humor and
or anything else?
Yeah, we can talk about other stuff.
We have a bunch of comments that I can share if you guys would like.
What did you say?
From Celia. Oh, we have a bunch of comments. Hang on, I'm going to hold my iPad like this. So, from Celia, we have human brains are sexually dimorphic and men's brains are larger than women's brains. But intelligence is a function of the ratio of brain size to body size. So that means that women are inherently more intelligent. What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely correct. I believe Sylvia's study is correct. All right, next question.
Next comment.
Oh, comment. Oh, I see what you did there, Sukumar.
Oh, okay. This one is specifically for, I have two for Suk. So I have another one from Celia who says, 15-year-old single malt scotch also helps depression, Sukumar. And that's from John.
What? I didn't hear that.
Sorry. 15-year-old single malt scotch also helps depression, Sukumar, and that's from John.
That's true. That's true.
In the short term, but in the long term, talk to me tomorrow. Tell me about your depression.
Okay, this is a real science question. So, tricyclic antidepressants stimulate hippocampal neurogenesis in the adult brain. Takes about a month in humans, and this is thought to account for their mood elevating ability.
Yeah, so do SSRIs increase the number of progenitors in the adult human brain. And the issue, again, going back to my cold water problem is I'm not sure exactly what that means in terms of antidepressant actions of these drugs. So both tricyclics as well as SSRIs do that.
So perhaps what I am getting out of that question is the time frame that it takes a month. Sometimes I remember people talking about getting on antidepressants and needing 90 days to see any results. So maybe you're saying, look, you're not going to laugh right now and get immediate. That's impossible. Maybe that's I may be inferring too much there. And they might be right. But I will say one of the things I want to put forward at the meeting to do your own anecdotal evidence of one is to try for 30 days or 90 days to increase the number of times you laugh per day. Like, just do your own study at home. I'm serious. It changed my life when I started reading these articles. I know I'm getting preachy and excited, but I was a single mom working 12-hour shifts as a nurse, and a shitty nurse. And kind of like seriously though, I should not have been working as a nurse because I had not been a nurse for 13 years and I had no continuing education units. I was super stressed out. I had a lot of learning to do. Okay, my point is this. I was really stressed, really grumpy, going through menopause, a lot of stuff going on. And I read these articles and I just started making a more intentional use of humor. And with my son, who was a toddler, and he, if you've ever been in an ego battle with a toddler, you will lose every single time. He did not want to wear socks. And we had to get out the door. And I just started getting more playful, intentionally playful. And these are some of the healthy humor habits. And then I started balling up the socks. So we'd have a sock bomb fight before we left. And he never wore the socks. And nobody reported me to Child Protective Services for him not having socks. But my point is, seriously, I don't know if it's short term or long term, but I will say, if I consciously make a point to laugh several times a day, like really seek it out, it's counterintuitive because the more stressed you are, the more you need it. And I really do believe this. If you even take a humor break in the middle of anxiety or problem that you're trying to solve, just see how you feel after you go back and try and solve that problem, or see if you have more resource. Just do your own study.
So Nancy, did you attend any of those laughter yoga retreats and camps? Or whatever, laughter yoga sessions?
I did not. We go to a Nepalese India Nepal camp. My son's adopted from Nepal. I always say I did not birth my son in my 40s. I adopted him, or as he says, I bought him, which is not how it works. That is not how it works, people. Although I did have a Groupon. All right. So the journey of love. It was a journey of love. No, I didn't do those laughing yoga. But I actually meant to talk to you a little bit ago about the benefits of laughter versus the benefits of humor. There still are some benefits of laughter because it increases oxygen and it really can stimulate that kind of limbic system and get, excitement and, give you energy. I don't know. I didn't do it, but I am not exaggerating. I would not have had a successful adoption. I spent 5 months in Nepal on the first round and a month on the second. So I had 6 months total, and I just could not have had the staying power without humor. And ironically, I did a yoga class to cope with the stress over there. It was not supposed to be laughing yoga, but we got the giggles because we were supposed to dance holding one nostril going forward and one going back. And these women, we just started giggling because we felt silly. Like, this woman was very serious, like, now hold your left nostril, breathe in, dance forward. And we just started giggling, and then it's a long story, but it ended up bonding me with these women I didn't even know. And that's another thing. What about that part, the bonding part of humor? Do you guys feel closer to me now? How about you? How about you? You guys? But that's one of the theories that we evolved with humor, and part of the reward system. The reason it gets into that reward circuit is because it rewards us for a bond. You know, we need each other to survive, and it's a social bonding tool. I don't know. I'm sort of out of my wheelhouse again.
And it's also benign, right? So it's not as opposed to aggression. This is much more what do you call it?
Affiliative.
Yes. There you
Yeah. Yeah. That's two.
So
There's humor styles. Like there's aggressive humor that really puts people down and, you know, alienates them. And then there's the affiliative that brings people together. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have a joke. See if you find it funny. So when the king is bored, what do you do when the king is bored? And you dress up his women in fishnet clothing and send him to go fishing. Okay, there's a reason for me telling that, right? So that actually is one of the oldest jokes ever written. So this was this was dated to 1600 BC in an Egyptian papyrus called the Westcar papyrus. So
was this told originally with hieroglyphics or something?
Probably.
Did they have
that probably
fishnet
made it funny. Maybe that's how it was funny, because I didn't find it very funny. So I guess you had to be there. but yeah, so humor, you know, going back to the history of humor, you know, there are these kind of jokes that you know existed thousands of years ago. So people found this joke telling as a social activity in you know, all through history.
And I would like to apologize for stepping on your punchline, because now
There was no punchline.
I thought that was the punchline. You had to be there. I thought that's what you were. That
was me. That wasn't the punchline.
I was like, oh, I mean, it's the ultimate comedian faux pas that I would be like, and let me get my funny thing in there, and then you're like, oh no. There is like this, you know, comedian like, oh, I should. Your pacing is so deliberate and so, you know, and I'm anxious, fast-paced kind of style. So I step on your. I was worried. Sorry. I just want to apologize. Bring that up at the meeting and acknowledge it and make amends.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the amends. So what else? Are we done, or did you
Have
talk
people
some
gone to bed?
And where is wit found in the brain?
Where is what found in the brain?
Where is wit found in the brain?
Yeah, but so that's what we were talking about, you know, looking at the brain like an orchestra. So there is no specific area. It's the interaction between various brain areas that give rise to wit and give rise to humor.
For me, it's the left frontal cortex, but I don't know about you guys, but
that's so the 60s. No, I use my temporal cortex.
My humor's all occipital, baby. I do a lot of visual jokes, you know? I noticed that about me. Like I do a mixture. So there's what are all those styles, whatever, incongruity, and I'm not as smart and witty. I am more improv-y and make fun of what isness. I don't know, just saying. But I notice I do a lot of visuals, like the half a trailer going down the highway, you know, when you get a divorce in the Ozarks. Okay, I'm not going to bring that one up again. Well, the last thing, I actually had a little list over here, but the only other thing I had on here, and I don't know if people are interested in the types of humor, like gallows humor, physical humor, self-deprecating humor, wit, that is more of you scholarly types with wordplay and wit, and surreal kind of Monty Python. I love Monty Python also. I love that kind of surreal silliness, and then topical humor, which is I rarely do, I'm lazy, and then that material is burned when the next newscast. But I do some topical, like COVID. I have a few COVID inventions I've been working on. I got the Ozark bidet. I said bidet, sir. Yeah. Do not worry about the toilet paper running out. Just run a garden hose in through the window and set the nozzle on flowers. It's mildly.
Sorry. Sam actually has a question. We've talked a lot about witty humor and puns, but what about slapstick?
Yeah, physical humor. Yeah.
Oh, slapstick. I heard it as plastic.
Well, I will say this. I do love some physical stuff, but Dick Cavett, and I don't know if any of you remember Dick Cavett. Look him up. Kids, look him up. Dick Cavett said, for most people to laugh, a man dressed as an old woman falling down a manhole will make most people laugh. But for a comedian to laugh, it really needs to be an old woman. So that's a little bit of gallows humor mixed with slapstick. That's the combo. Or dark humor, same as gallows humor.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's an fMRI study done on comedians.
Terrifying.
We can't hold still long enough. Are there any other questions, or do you want to hear what happened with the guy with the nail gun?
Yeah.
With the nails in his head?
Did you put the hand on?
Well, with the nail gun, that would be smart. That would be, I like how your mind is working. That's nice, Sam. Okay. So this joke, I'm just going to tell just because why not? People can leave and go to bed. They get tired. No, this is just one of the ways of demonstrating a little bit of use of gallows humor. I actually did a presentation for this conference center recently here in Colorado with my week science. But the point is, I was trying to tell them is don't be ashamed, because a lot of nurses and doctors have that really dark sense of humor. And you have to know where and who's your audience, especially among each other. In the back room is where to do that. And it actually can help you dissipate some of that trauma, because when you see trauma, it's really you're experiencing trauma. It's vicarious trauma. In the DSM-5, it's not distinguished between trauma and vicarious trauma. So the point is, what are you doing with that trauma? So there's a high incident of suicide and depression among healthcare workers, EMTs, and this is kind of the heavy part, but it's okay to joke about it. And I try to give them permission, because it actually helps you cope with that trauma and dissipate some of that energy. So this guy, all right, working a miter saw in the basement, drinking his malt scotch. I don't know, single malt. I don't know, how many malts? How many malts do you like?
Single.
No, only single malt. Okay, I don't know what he was drinking. Maybe some bourbon, maybe some Jack and Decker. I don't know. He was drinking, working a miter saw, and then the hand, is on the floor. Bad day. Nobody thinks that's a good day. It's a horrible, situation. But he decides in that moment to try to end his life, which he does not succeed in doing. And I know this is kind of heavy, but okay. He decides in that moment to reach for the nearest tool in his work area, which you already know is a nail gun. Usually during my performance art piece, I will have people in the audience yell out tools that they might try to end their life with. Because I'm fun that way. And people will yell out, screwdriver, drill, sander, which I always love. Sander's my favorite, because how long would that take to get through the jugular? Am I right? Like, you're exhausted, but it would be smooth. It would be smooth. All right. So the guy picks up the nail gun and decides, but fortunately, so relax. Fortunately, which never helps. That's Pavlovian now, isn't it? If you tell people to relax, you're going to get nervous, right? Because where do you hear relax? Dentist, gynecologist, whatever. Anyway, dental gynecologist, which is a weird combo. But here's the thing. This guy, proceeds to, shoot himself in the head with a nail gun. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I would say fortunately, they're just 1-inch nails. And I know what you're thinking. They're finishing nails. They should do the job, but they do not. I know you guys, I am responsible. I would just like to do a disclaimer for the Student Senate that I am responsible for all my content. And so the guy is like, shoots himself 19 times.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you. Validate. Testify. That is perseverance. That is follow through. I want to see a little bit more of that out of you people. Come on. He would have kept going, but the clip ran out and you cannot reload with one hand. So that's when he finally called his wife to the basement. And, oh, man. All right. She's like, bring me a baggie and some ice and a hat. Because you can't go to the ER with nails half in, half out. People put notes on them. Lost handyman for hire. You know, people are rude. Handless man, somebody writes. It's not nice. So, so the good news, you know, they did reattach his hand. I just wanted to tell you the follow-up that he did get use out of it, but they couldn't get all the nails out of his head. So that is, I'm a message comic. If you accidentally ever, you know, cut a body part off, do not shoot yourself in the head with a nail gun. I don't know if they couldn't get all the nails out or if it was just a really tired on-call doctor who hammered him in and puttied him over. But that is a long way to go for that joke. All right. That's how that ends. I am not going to be asked back. I can tell that. So, I don't know. That's where I'm talking about like the physical, visual humor. Usually in the middle, I talk about my mom. If my mom were to cut her hand off, because it's like the guy cuts it off and goes, shoot. And then I'm like, oh, that he would probably swear, but I don't want to swear. So.
I have one very special comment from Kate just for you, Nancy. It says, ask Nancy about the room full of nurses for whom she performed during Nurses Week. We have dark senses of humor. Educator husband is regularly concerned by the things that we joke about. Anyway, my colleague literally peed her pants. We in the healthcare field adore Nancy.
Oh, thanks, Kate. Give it up for the healthcare workers. Thank you, Kate. Oh, how nice. Yes. I'm going to tell you, that audience was loose that night. And yeah, they were telling me about some of their aggressive Heimlich maneuver styles. Yeah, that was a fun night for Nurses Week we did last year at Comedy Works. Thanks, Kate. All right. We didn't.
Guys.
In closing.
Almost 8 o'clock here, so we can let you go, Nancy and Suk. But thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. We all had a lot of fun here.
Yes, we did.
Cheers. Hopefully the audience had fun too, although we can't see you.
Thanks for all the questions from the webinar viewers. And thanks for having this conversation and humbling me with my intelligence.
Thanks for teaching Suk everything he knows.
Yeah.
I got you, Suk. Yeah.
All righty, well, bye.
Okay, see you guys.
Your weekend. Thank you.
Thank y'all. I'm not leaving. I just do this till it's over. That's my hand. That's the hand. No, wait. That's the hand.
No one will hit leave. We'll